What if the answers to your child's chronic allergies, ADHD, or autism weren't just in another prescription, but in restoring balance to their body chemistry? Today's guest has spent nearly 2 decades uncovering those answers through integrative and biomedical medicine. That's a mouthful, isn't it? Helping children heal when nothing else seemed to work. This is the conversation about science, compassion, and changing the future of pediatric care. Welcome back to Let's Talk Wellness Now, the show where we uncover the root causes of chronic illness, explore breakthroughs, and empower you with the practical tools to heal. I'm your host, Dr. Deb, your medical detective, and today's episode is one every patient should hear. My guest is Dr. Anju Usman Singh, Medical Director of True Health Medical Center in Naperville, Illinois, and the owner of Pure Compounding Pharmacy. And for over 17 years, she has been pioneering evidence-based integrative interventions for children with ADD, autism, allergies, and complex gastrointestinal and metabolic disorders. She's not only a practicing physician, she's a researcher who's investigated copper, zinc imbalances, methionine dysfunction, biofilm related infections, vitamin D in pregnancy, and hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Dr. Usman serves on the executive board of TACA and is a faculty member at MAPS, training other practitioners in pediatric integrative care. So get ready for a conversation that will open your mind and heart to the possibilities of when medicine truly becomes holistic. Ladies, it's time to reignite your vitality. Primal Queen supplements are clean, powerful formulas made for women like you who want balance, strength, and energy that lasts. Get 25% off at primalqueen.com Serenity Health. That's primalqueen.com Serenity Health, because every queen deserves to feel in her prime. Well, welcome back. I'm so excited to have Dr. Usman with me today. I have known her for, oh my gosh, 15, 17 years, something like that. We're aging ourselves.
Oh yeah, when we were in our 20s, right?
Yes, exactly. So, welcome back. And I am so excited for you to be here because you have literally helped thousands of families over the years. But I'd love for you to share a little bit about your journey, kind of who you are, what drew you into exploring integrative and biomedical approaches for helping children and families.
I think my journey is similar to a lot of you out there, the audience. I mean, we're looking to help our families and our kids and ourselves. And I was doing my residency at Cook County Hospital, downtown Chicago, in the 80s. And I thought, oh my goodness, if I could take care of the sickest patients, then I can take care of anybody. So I
Mhm.
came from Indiana and I went to Cook County, and my children, my eldest daughter started having severe allergies and asthma really, really at a young age. And I went to like my residents and I went to my attendings and I said, this baby is wheezing. And they told me babies don't have asthma. And I said, she has all the symptoms of asthma. She has asthma. And I remember in her crib, I would just nebulize her, and
Mhm.
I was like, what is going on? And I figured out that she had a lot of food allergies, and I was nursing her, eating the foods that she was allergic to. And back then in the 80s, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have Whole Foods. And I just, being a doctor, and I didn't even know what to do. And I felt so hopeless. And I thought, gosh, I'm a doctor. I have these like skills, I have people I can talk to, and I still feel it's so difficult.
Mhm.
And then my particular daughter, the oldest one, her name is Priya, and she developed severe asthma, and I couldn't figure it out. She was in junior high. Every time she would walk into the lunchroom, she would have a severe asthma attack. And I would be like, what's going on? What's going on? I kept her home over the weekend. She was better. I sent her back to school. She was bad again. And we figured it out that it was other people eating peanut.
Mhm. Severe peanut allergy.
hmm
Yeah.
And I went to the school and I said, can you like put her somewhere else? They
Mhm.
said, oh no, that's not fair to other kids and their food. And this was in the 90s.
Yeah.
And so I just, my heart goes out to families who are struggling to find answers for their kids. And my daughter Priya, the one I told you about, she ended up passing away from a peanut allergy.
Mhm.
And so I've just
Yeah.
My heart goes out to parents and my own kids and their illnesses. And so I just started working with families with kids, and it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah, and I think being a mom who went through that yourself and was seen but not heard and turned away from the traditional medical community, you're forced to start finding answers on your own. And we always feel like we're on an island by ourselves in the medical world when we're doing that.
Yeah, I it was really hard when I found out about integrative medicine and just different ideas and approaches to diet and supplements. I thought, how come I wasn't trained in any of this?
Yeah.
And
You
I
get
felt
angry. I
stupid.
got so angry when I learned some of the things that I learned in the beginning. I was like, same thing, like, how did they not teach us this? And then
hmm
I think, it's my fault. Was I asleep? Was I not paying attention? Whatever. And then you just realize like there's this whole part of the human body that they just didn't teach us.
Yeah. So then I probably like you, we had to learn it on our
Yeah.
own. There weren't
Mhm.
like classes or any way to learn this
Oh,
stuff.
no,
And I just reached out. There's a clinic that I don't know if you've heard of the Pfeiffer Treatment Center.
no.
Do you know Carl Pfeiffer from the
Yeah.
1970s?
Hmm.
He has a clinic called the Pfeiffer Treatment Center in New Jersey. It was called the Princeton Brain Bio Center. And
Okay.
in the 70s, they did orthomolecular medicine for
Hmm.
patients with ADD and schizophrenia
Mm.
and depression. And they used to categorize them in three categories. And at the time, they called them histopenics, histodelics, and pyrolorics.
Okay.
Histopenics were low histamine patients.
Hmm.
Histodelics were high histamine patients, and pyrolorics were their own kind of category. We
Hmm.
added another category of copper zinc imbalances,
Hmm.
and then we would categorize that population into high histamine, low histamine, pyrolorics, and copper zinc. Now we talk about undermethylation, overmethylation.
Sure.
So undermethylation is the high histamine people, they can't clear the histamine. And the overmethylators are, what we call the low histamine now.
Hmm.
And then pyrolorics and copper zinc. So I lost my train of thought, but in the 80s when I was going through this in the 90s, I reached out to the Pfeiffer Treatment Center.
Hmm.
Said, can I come and just hang out and like see what you guys do? Because I need some
Yeah.
answers. And I started working there and started doing research on copper zinc imbalances. And I did it in children with autism.
Hmm.
And that's how people started coming to me. And I kind of got like, not famous, but the word spread
Yeah.
about, okay,
Yeah.
we could talk about it. And Dr. Walsh was the, PhD there that did a lot of the research. So we worked together for 8 years.
Isn't it crazy to think that we knew about histamine issues way back in the 70s? I got the pleasure of being trained by environmental medicine doctors. Dr. Wayne Konetsky and Glenn Toth taught me about environmental medicine and what we called histamine issues that we call it today mast cell, right? But
Right.
when I was learning in the early 2000s, it was labeled as chemical sensitivity. And so it was just people that would react to everything, and we really didn't know why. And they didn't necessarily have this very specific allergic reaction, but we knew they were reacting. And we would try to treat them to lower the histamine way back then. And it's taken all these years, 25 years, to get to a point where we understand mast cell activation now and histamine issues. And it's really sad to me that it's taking this long for us to identify things. And we've all got our journey. And I loved back in those days too, because as I learned, I would call people up and say, "Hey, I just got a patient from you, and they told me this great story, and I have other people. Can I come see what you were doing?" And back then, everybody was very open. They were like, "Yes, please come
Mhm.
learn." Now everybody's like, "No, we can't teach you. We can't give you our secrets." But or pay me $20,000 to come learn with me. But back then, I mean, everybody was just, we were all in the same boat. We were all just trying to learn from each other.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And any bit of knowledge you got, you're like, oh
Yes.
my gosh, I learned this piece. And
Hmm.
we just kind of built from that. I keep thinking about back then, the undermethylators, overmethylators, copper, zinc, and then I learned about metals.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a physician, I was like, oh, okay. Well, there's mercury in vaccines, there's aluminum in vaccines, and now I'm seeing these high levels in my patients. Now what
Yeah.
happens? And then we started kind of trying to get the word out about those things.
Yeah.
And in 2000, a lot of the people that I knew put out a paper about, mercury. And
Mm-hmm.
then we all got on the mercury bandwagon.
Yes.
And did that for a while. And then we started learning about other things like mitochondrial issues in chronically ill people and these chronic infections like Lyme disease. And
Yeah.
so, and then now, understanding mast cell activation and cell danger response
Mm-hmm.
on endocrine and adrenals and hormones and you
Yeah.
kind of
Biofilms
the
and it's so
biofilms, I started
complicated all
talking
of a
about that in
sudden.
2007. And
Yeah.
so then it just kind of keeps adding and keeps adding and keeps adding. And it's like
Mhm.
sometimes you think, how come I didn't know about this back then? But I feel like it's a process.
It definitely is a process, and it's amazing to see how many people are researching different things and they're all like putting a piece of the puzzle together. And I think this is really important for our listeners to understand is when you see a practitioner and they don't have all the answers, this is why. It's very complicated. It's not black and white. And I've had patients over the years say to me, well, why didn't you say this to me 6 months ago? And the truth of the matter was, I didn't know about it 6 months ago. Like all of this stuff is just, it's evolving constantly. And when you're a practitioner like Dr. Usman and myself, you are learning every single day. Our training has never stopped from the day we stepped into integrative medicine. And
Mhm.
you keep learning new things and sharing new things and talking to new people. And that's what expands our knowledge base.
Yeah. The more I learn, the less I feel like I know.
Yes, me too. Every time I go to a conference, I'm like, how did I not know this? How am I stupid? And I know we shouldn't say that word and call ourselves that, but sometimes you feel like that. It's like, how did I not know?
Or you'll see a patient and you'll look at them and you're like, how come I didn't realize this about this particular patient
Yes.
before? But
Yeah, they
I
present
mean,
differently, see things differently.
I
Yeah.
think that's why it's good to find a doctor that you trust and that you can work with because it's evolving. And
Yes.
we have those patients that they come in. I get those. I call myself like a tertiary care center.
Mhm.
You get those
Yep.
patients that have been everywhere and seen every doctor, and then they're like, "You're my last hope. You're gonna solve all my problems." And I say to
Uh,
them, "We're a team. Like we're gonna
yep.
solve these together, but it takes time for me to unravel this puzzle."
Mhm.
And sometimes, there's a few hits and misses along the way.
Yep,
But if we keep
exactly.
at it, we also say it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yes.
If we keep at it, we can kind of figure it out together.
Yeah, and a partnership for sure, because without the feedback of the person you're working with, understanding like we do this and this happens to you, it's very complicated as a practitioner to then be able to figure out what do we do next. I see more and more clients these days, they come in and they just want to ask me within the first 5 minutes of what am I changing? And I'm like, I have no clue yet. Like you have to tell me what's happened since the last time we did something. And then we have to look at labs and we have to look at this and it's a scenario that we have to look at. It's not that black and white for us to be able to put the pieces together for them.
I think my most successful patients are the ones who are able to communicate with me their ups and downs,
Yeah.
and they also use their own intuition to
Hmm.
help me guide them.
Yeah.
So there are some people that they just hear, you do it and you tell
Yep.
me. And then
Hmm.
there are people who try to tell me everything
Hmm.
and say, I want you to do this, do this, do this. And
Yes.
I was like, okay, I can do those things, but like
Yep.
think about blah blah. But like that collaboration and intuition, I kind of feel like even though I was trained allopathically as a traditional medical doctor, I feel like as I learn that being open and letting go of fear
Yeah.
and not trying to jump on every like new thing and being
Hmm.
consistent and diligent really helps.
It helps a ton. We see that too, the latest Instagram influencer that's talking about the latest topic. And all of a sudden, everybody sees themselves in there and they must have that, but not realizing putting those connections together. It's like when MTHFR came out, right? We were all so excited that this was going to be the detox gene. And then we learned so much more about genes, and now MTHFR is very popular again, and everyone's talking about it, but they don't understand how some of those other genetics fit together. And if you don't understand that, we've all done it. We've all made people worse instead of better sometimes when we've given too many methyl groups together, or this supplement without this support before we knew that there was another gene that we had to support for that. And I think it's really important for people that are listening to us today talk about this is don't just jump on the bandwagon. Like you really want to work with somebody seasoned who understands how all these pieces fit together.
Yeah, and I think that's what individualized medicine is about.
Yeah,
And there is no magic cure or magic bullet.
right.
I think that example of MTHFR is really good. Now, President Trump talked about leucovorin
Yes.
in and he'll get up and say something like leucovorin cures autism, and then
Yeah.
the rest of us are like, did
Uh-huh.
he just say that?
Yep, he
And
did.
leucovorin is folinic acid. It's calcium folinic acid. It's been around a long time. We've been using it for 20 years for our
Yeah.
patients.
Mhm.
But it does help a subset of people who potentially have what we call cerebral folate deficiency. And some of those people are misdiagnosed as autism. So are you treating autism or are you treating cerebral folate deficiency?
Mhm.
The same thing I could say about I have a lot of cases of kids who recovered from autism and severe ADHD using chelation type of approaches or detox approaches. Again, did we treat their ADD and their autism, or did we treat their lead toxicity or lead burden, and then
Right.
their symptoms of those things got better?
Yeah. Did we
So,
support
like
the
to put a
mitochondria?
big, like a label like, oh, ADD on something or autism on something, I think it does a disservice to the individuals because it's such a broad issue.
It is, and I think the diagnosis is gotten to be much more popular these days. And yes, thank goodness we're getting better diagnostics, but sometimes we're getting overdiagnosis, or like you said, it may look like one thing, but it could be something else. But because it looks like autism, they're going to get labeled with autism. And in some respects, that's good. They can get more services that way, but sometimes we're missing the actual picture of it. Can you talk a little bit about how autism is different than the cerebral folate deficiency?
Yeah. So there are some people that make an antibody to their folate receptor.
Mm,
So to get folic acid into your cells, there's a receptor on your cells, and
mhm.
then the folate has to bind to it, and then it lets it enter into the cells. And there's these receptors that allow folic acid to get into your brain. Now,
Mhm.
you and I know when you put folate in your brain,
Mhm.
on one end of the folate cycle, you help make more neurotransmitters. You'll
Yeah.
make something called BH4, and that will help make serotonin and dopamine, and then norepinephrine and epinephrine. So folate is really important for making your neurotransmitters, folate and B12.
Mhm.
On the other end, it's like another cycle. On the other end of folate is our methylation cycle, and methylation is so important for our RNA and our DNA, and making choline, phosphatidylcholine, and making creatine for speech, and helping us with all the precursors for detoxification. So without folate in our brain, we can't make our neurotransmitters efficiently. We can't break them down efficiently, and we can't detox our brain. Imagine what that will do to your brain.
Yeah. Mhm.
And you will see symptoms like speech delays, cognitive delays, processing issues, poor attention, all of those things, excitation, anxiety,
Mhm.
all of those. And so, if the folate isn't getting into the brain efficiently, then we'll have all these symptoms and we'll end up with diagnoses like these.
Yeah. So is there a way that people who are listening to this can request a test to see if they make this antibody to folate, or is it more of a diagnosis of exclusion?
That's a great question. When I first started doing this like 20 years ago, there was like a university that was doing this studies, and it was Dr. Quadros. He was
Mhm.
the guy. And we would take samples and send him to his lab, and he would tell us about these blocking and binding
Mhm.
folate antibodies. And if patients had positive blocking or binding folate antibodies, we would follow his protocol. And he's done papers on patients with severe autism where he found these folate antibodies and then did spinal taps on the kids, and they were associated with this cerebral folate deficiency and
Mhm.
the cerebral spinal fluid. And in his papers, he gave zero point 0.5 to 2 milligrams per kilogram of calcium folinic acid, which is leucovorin. It's a vitamin.
Mhm.
And over a 6 month to a 12-month period, the majority of those patients improved drastically. Some
Wow.
of them regained speech, and some of them lost their autism diagnosis.
Because they never truly had autism. They
Well,
had
they
this
have
folate.
autism symptoms, and that's what autism
Right.
is,
Mhm.
but we
Yeah.
call it autisms.
Yeah.
And so now, like, we need the research to categorize these people. You know, what percentage of autism is cerebral folate deficiency?
Yeah.
And what percentage of autism is heavy metal burden?
Mhm.
And what percentage of autism is Clostridia overgrowth or
Mhm.
microbiome dysfunction? And then there's overlap.
Right. Yeah. Lyme and mold and viruses and
Hands and
mitochondrial
infections
deficiency and
yeah, sorry.
injury from medications and things like that that happen,
Yeah.
or birth traumas. Yeah, I mean it's not as simple as what people think autism is. Why do you think that we're seeing so much more autism today than when you and I were kids? We didn't see this that often. I know environment has a lot to do with it, but do you have a couple of things that you suspect are contributing to the rise of autism these days?
Yeah, I mean, that's a million-dollar question.
Right,
And just because I work with children, it's not just autism that's
right.
epidemic, and you
Yeah,
you know that. I mean,
yeah.
it's probably if you add all the epidemics that are happening to children, autism still supersedes it.
Hmm.
Now it's 1 in 33, it's 1 in 35 boys. I mean, it's children. It's really sad. When I was in med school, it was 1 in 10,000.
Hmm. That's
So
crazy.
what's causing it? I mean, obviously it's multifactorial.
80,000 chemicals in the environment that we never had before. That's,
I look, I've 219 million.
oh my gosh.
I looked it up today.
219 million different chemicals in the environment. Wow.
We don't know how many of those are super toxic.
Yeah. And we
And
don't
it's
know what
only
they
been
do
studied. A
together.
lot of them were like before, like your grandfather did and all of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's really crazy about the chemicals. So chemicals, I kind of feel like, this burden of all this, it's not just on our children, it's on our mothers.
Yes. Oh my gosh, the moms of these children that they're
And
saying
they don't
this.
even realize it. We're just so happy to be pregnant and have a kid.
Yeah.
So I think it really, really starts with that piece.
Prenatal care, good prenatal care. Yeah.
Yeah. And not just what we think is prenatal care, taking your prenatal vitamins
Mhm. Yes.
and going to your gynecologist, but what you and I think is prenatal care,
Yeah.
before you get pregnant, let's
Right.
detox, let's clean up our diet, let's get rid of those chemicals, let's make sure we're not in a moldy environment.
Yes.
Let's do our due diligence, clean air, clean water, clean food, sunshine. When I
Yep.
did my residency at county, I don't think I saw the sun for 3 years.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
know, it's just that intense. And I was pregnant twice, and my eldest has the allergies and asthma. Number two is type 1 diabetes and mold sensitivities and allergies and asthma. Number three has severe chemical sensitivities, mast cell activation,
Hmm.
hormonal issues.
Yeah.
And number four is my golden baby.
And and those three, that those years that you're there and you're not seeing the sunlight, there's vitamin D deficiency. And we don't talk about vitamin D that much during pregnancy. I still am appalled that we're giving folic acid these days during pregnancy instead of folate. But
Or
so
folinic or methylfolate.
Yeah, nothing. So when you discovered vitamin D in pregnancy and its link to neural development outcomes, how did you stumble across that?
Well, in when I started working on copper zinc, Dr. Walsh and I would go to the like Dan conferences at
Yeah,
the time. And it was interesting because Dan conferences were a collaboration between parents and practitioners and researchers.
very unique
And
for
that's
people
how
that are
that
listening
that
to
new
us.
IACC committee is. It's a collaboration of parents,
Hmm.
practitioners, researchers, and individuals with autism.
Yeah. So for those of you who are listening to us, it's we're talking about the Interagency Autism Coordinating Committee that Bobby Kennedy just put together. It's called IACC, and they are on a mission to try to do the research to figure out what's causing autism.
Yeah. And not just causing it, like these people have been living it. Most of the people on
Yeah.
that committee have been living it and their whole life for some
Mhm.
of them. And being able to bring forward like the question about vitamin D, we started seeing a lot of patients in Minnesota
Mm.
who were from Somalia,
Okay.
who were, it was like 1 in 4 families with kids
Oh,
with autism.
wow.
And the theory was that the vitamin D levels that they get in Somalia versus the vitamin D levels that the moms get in Minnesota
Mhm.
affected the immune system
Yeah.
and predisposed them. So there's a few papers on that.
Yeah, I mean, would be a very significant difference. And when you're thinking about genetically, like what their culture, who they are as a species, was used to and adapted to with the sunlight and different things from a different region, geographical region, and then they move to a new geographical region, that can take decades before the body adapts and readjusts
Mhm.
to that new environment. And we don't think about those things in traditional medicine, in conventional medicine as most people know it, but we do in functional medicine.
Yeah, so again, the clinicians were bringing this up, like, why am I seeing so many families?
Yeah.
And let me go to and then in the think tank, the vitamin D research said it's vitamin D.
Yeah.
And then they started researching it, and it was almost like a backwards thinking.
Hmm.
They didn't first think it.
I
They
didn't think about it. Yeah.
until you start seeing, and that's why I think that like clinicians like you and me, I consider us on the front lines. We're the
Right.
front lines. We're seeing this epidemic unfold in
Yes.
front of our eyes. We're seeing like the gut issues and the severe inflammation. We're seeing the autoimmunity, and now they have to study it.
Yeah.
They have to study this.
Yeah.
We really need protocols. We need tools. We need things that you and I have been figuring out anecdotally with our colleagues over the years. And oh, how do we treat yeast? How do we treat Lyme? How do we
Yeah.
treat metal burden? For this podcast today, I wanted to talk about low-level lead exposure because
Yeah.
for me, 1 in 3 children have a lead level above 5.
Ooh.
1 in 3.
Yeah, that's very
That's
high.
like 800 million children.
And let's clarify this because the first thing people are going to think of is what are they eating? They're not eating lead paint to get this. That is not what's happening here. They are getting lead from someplace else, and their bodies are not able to detox this.
And the reason I'm bringing this up is because when I was in residency at County in the 90s, I worked at a lead clinic.
Mhm.
And back then, when we just diagnosed lead toxicity, the level was 60.
Their level had to be 60 to diagnose them.
Correct.
Oh my gosh.
And that's when we would treat. And back then, there was a study, it's called the TLC study,
Hmm.
they used DMSA, which is a drug to lower lead.
Hmm.
And our goal was to get it from 60 to 20.
And was the normal range the same back then as it is today?
Now, the normal range has gone from 60 to 40 to 20 to 10 to 5 to 3.5. But you
Wow.
and I know the normal range,
Yes. Mhm.
0.
Zero. Hmm.
So again, in the lead clinic, we were given DMSA and
Hmm.
we got the lead from 60 to 20, and the number one thing was to get rid of the lead in the environment.
Yeah.
But we haven't evolved since then because in that study, it did not improve cognitive ability. So if you think about what lead does, it causes attention issues,
Yeah.
slow processing. It affects hearing. It can cause hyperactivity. It can cause impulsivity. It can cause aggression. It can cause constipation. It can cause hypotonia. So if you
Mhm.
think about all these kids with ADD and autism, how many of them have low level lead exposure from the lead pipes? In Chicago, it's a big problem.
Yeah. Milwaukee
Everybody
too.
thinks Flint, Michigan, but Flint, Michigan is not the only place.
Right. Our infrastructure is so terrible. It has not been updated. And even though you might look in your house and you might see a white PVC or plastic pipe, what's coming under the ground to the house in the cities is usually still lead.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So I guess the point is that the idea of like studying this, so again, they studied this and they say, well, we're not going to treat low-level lead exposure because it doesn't improve their cognition. But did they really treat it? They
Right.
got it from 60, we got it from 60 to 20. But you
Right.
and I know, where is the lead hiding?
So high.
It's
Well, yeah.
it's
And
in
as
the
an
bones.
adult,
It's going to be coming
yes.
out. It's going to be coming out, especially during puberty. And
Yep.
what happens to some of our kids during puberty? They just go a little
Yeah.
wonky.
Hmm.
It comes out again during menopause.
Yes.
Or I don't know, male menopause too. Like we're
Yep.
all losing bone mass
Menopause.
then, and our
Yep.
lead is coming out. Blood pressure goes up. So
Yep.
again, these are some of the areas that I think like
Mhm.
really need some hard looks.
Right. Yeah. So, what are you hopeful about this committee? Like, are you hopeful that this committee is going to be able to research some of these big things? And we're really going to be able to find answers around some of the functional things and the biochemical things that we see, you and I know happen in the body that might give some standardization and education to practitioners in the future.
Well, I think this committee understands the scope of the issues,
Hmm.
and they're coming from different perspectives. Like I mentioned, research,
Yeah.
really highly qualified MDs,
Mhm.
MDs like you and me who have been on the front lines,
Hmm.
moms,
Yeah.
dads,
Mhm.
patients. And so the strategy would be to get, again, their input and then get the places, people in places to do the research.
Hmm.
And even make some guidelines and some like, thoughts about what we want to put out there.
Yeah.
How do we want to strategize for
Mhm.
prevention, like the pre-pregnancy thing?
Yeah. I'm really hopeful that this doesn't become a political football, and it doesn't get taken away if the administration changes or whatever, because people need to understand that this kind of research, this is going to take decades for people to do. Granted, we have AI and AI can help a little bit and get some things quicker. But trying to figure out all of these nuances to why the body does what it does is not going to be like next week we're going to find out that this was the single cause. And I know a lot of people, they're afraid of the vaccines and that's going to be the sole answer. And that has a piece of it, but it is just a small piece of it. For some
Mhm.
people, larger. But at the end of the day, that's not what this is about. This isn't about just labeling one thing that is the cause of autism because it is not one thing. It is so multifactorial.
And I think that whole cause, I know a lot of money has gone into
Yeah.
looking at that. They're
Mhm.
looking for the gene, right? The
Yeah.
gene
Yeah.
that causes it.
The
And
simple answer.
they've spent millions of dollars looking for this. And it's not going to pan out.
No.
It's not going
Mm-mm.
to pan out. It's more complex, like we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I do think that sometimes, even though like politically it seems like it's a political topic, but it has zero to do with politics.
Yeah. Exactly. This is our children. This is the future of our country, the world. I mean, America's not the only place that has kids with autism.
Mm-mm.
Um, I mean, this is the future of humanity. If we don't figure out what's injuring our children, there will not be a humanity that you and I have seen. It will be different. And this is important. We owe it to the future of our generations. We owe it to our children to figure this out and clean up our environment and make it safe for everybody.
Yeah. Clean up our air, clean up our
Yeah.
water, clean up our food,
Yeah.
clean up our lifestyle a little bit, but
Mhm.
it's everywhere. I travel all over.
Mhm.
I consult with doctors in different
Mhm.
countries in Italy and India, Bulgaria, Romania,
Yeah.
and we're going to Australia for med maps to
Oh,
train
nice.
doctors in April.
Mhm.
And it's a problem everywhere.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
really big problem and it affects everybody. Even if you don't have a child with autism or a grandchild with autism, it's still affecting families
Mhm.
because I kind of think of ADD as being on the spectrum in the
Mhm.
sense that I think the same kind of causative issues that lead to the autism are causing the ADD, just to
Yeah.
your genetics are playing a little bit of a different role. Whatever protection you have is a bit more there, but we're seeing kind of like similar metabolic issues in our ADD population.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many different levels of this, and it does affect everyone. Like I think everybody knows a family or someone in their classroom or their school or their community that's affected by definitely ADHD, Asperger's, autism, all of those things, whether you're high functioning or not functioning or whatever, everything is affected. The school system is affected, your social circles are affected, your families are affected, the healthcare is affected. I mean, everything is affected. We owe it to our families and our communities to help people try to figure this out.
Yeah, and I think even if it's not ADD or ADHD or autism we're talking about, or even OCD, anxiety, depression, I mean, any
Pandas,
any kind of
PANS.
chronic illness that people are
Yeah,
dealing with has underpinnings of these kinds of, issues.
yeah,
Because any autoimmune issue,
yeah, yeah. Brain
um,
inflammatory syndrome that we're seeing these days. I mean, the PANS pandas piece, the biofilms, the strep. I mean, our environment is just so laden with infections and biofilms. And when you and I first were learning about this, we never thought anything could cross the blood-brain barrier, right? It was pristine. There's nothing getting in there unless you could drive it in there. And now we know that's different. And now we're seeing bugs in the brains of people who have had Alzheimer's disease and dementia because they've donated their brains for research, and we can see what's crossing the blood-brain barrier. And it's really scary.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of things we don't know. Remember
Yeah.
when we just found out that the brain had a lymphatic system?
That wasn't
That
that long
was
ago. What, five,
cool.
6 years ago, 7 years
But
ago, maybe? Yeah, not that long
but
ago.
to me, it'd be like, why wouldn't the brain have a lymphatic
Yeah.
system?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So things get in and out.
They
They
definitely
don't, they get in easier than they get out, I think.
do. I agree. I think they do for sure. For sure. When you're talking to a family who's undergoing issues like this, what's the role do you feel in personalized nutrition to help them make things better?
I kind of go through like a little bit of a start here, start there, and then do this.
Hmm.
I always start number one, I say, okay, you got to clean up your environment
Yeah.
because we got to do that. But that's a
Hmm.
process. And then number two for me is cleaning up the diet.
Hmm.
And then when you say personalized nutrition, to me, figuring out what is a good diet for the individual
Hmm.
makes it a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, there is like healthy eating concepts where,
Mhm.
you know, eat upside down food pyramid kind
Yeah.
of concept, I guess, is the new
Yeah.
one. But whole foods, whole grains, organic as much as possible, especially for animal products, good fats, avoiding, hydrogenated oils and those seed oils and just some basics. And then individualizing for my patients, a lot of people with any kind of autoimmune condition, and we kind of put autism in that neuroimmune, autoimmune, inflammatory space
Yeah.
that gluten-free, dairy-free, and sugar-free kind of go there like as a given.
Hmm.
If there's a lot of gut issues, a lot of our folks have oxalate issues, and then we have to sometimes do low or limited oxalate diets. Many of my patients can't convert glutamate to GABA efficiently.
Yeah.
So high glutamate's associated with OCD and kind of looping or repetitive behaviors. So low glutamate diets. And then some of my patients have SIBO, and then we do the low FODMAPs diet, and then some of my patients have MESO, and we'll do the fail-safe kind of concept with the fail-safe diet. So nutrition can get a little bit complex for certain people, that there are some basics, and then there are some like more of individual kind of diet approaches. And then there's supplementation. There's some things that I call foundational.
Hmm.
For me, certain things most people need that have a chronic illness.
Yeah.
Vitamin D3 is one of those.
Mhm.
Omega 3s are another one for most. And then because I did a lot of research on copper, zinc, I think four minerals. I feel like people underdo minerals. They're so important. Every single enzyme has a mineral cofactor. So zinc is really important for my population with autism and ADD. 99% of them had high copper or low zinc in
Mhm.
over 400 patients that we tested.
Wow.
And magnesium.
Hmm.
So zinc, magnesium, and then the other two minerals I really like are selenium for glutathione
Hmm.
and molybdenum for sulfation and glycolysis.
Hmm.
So those are kind of my foundational pieces, and then I like to work on the gut next. So from a nutritional perspective, prebiotics are my new favorite
Yeah, we
thing.
go in and out with prebiotics, probiotics, postbiotics these days.
Yeah, exactly. Symbiotics and
Yes, exactly, exactly.
HMOs and
Yeah.
oh yeah, biofilm busting and all of
Mhm.
that. So, and then I go into my other nitty-gritty stuff like you probably
Yeah.
do.
Individualized, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
you created True Healing Nature, a supplement line, a supplement company, correct?
Yeah, True Healing Naturals.
Truly Naturals.
No,
Okay.
True.
Oh,
Sorry,
oh,
True
True Healing
Healing
Naturals.
Naturals.
Got it. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Tell us a little bit about what made you decide to create a supplement company. Was it because you couldn't find formulations that you wanted, couldn't find clean products? That's a big problem for people, for sure.
Yeah, a little bit of both. I told you that my kids were really sensitive. They had a lot of
Mhm.
allergies. And when I would even try to give them things like ibuprofen
Uh,
or Benadryl for
mhm.
allergies, they couldn't tolerate the products that were over the counter.
Yeah,
So in 2007, I opened a compounding pharmacy so I could make things clean for them.
yeah.
And I thought it was so valuable. And so then I started seeing like certain issues with my patient population, for instance, say mitochondrial issues.
Hmm.
So I would compound a mito cocktail
Hmm.
in my pharmacy, and then I had True Healing Naturals manufacture it, so I
Okay,
didn't have to have patients get it compounded.
got it. And
And
so you,
so that particular product's called Mito Rescue.
okay.
But then I do a lot of oats testing. I don't know,
Hmm.
organic acid urine tests.
Yeah.
But there's like a marker on there for oxalates, and I saw a lot of patients with oxalates, and oxalates inhibit an enzyme called pyruvate decarboxylase. And that basically means you can't take your carbs and turn them into energy.
Okay.
So if I saw this pattern with high oxalates and high pyruvic acid, I knew that that enzyme wasn't working very well. And that enzyme is B1, molybdenum, and biotin dependent. So I started compounding doses of that.
Hmm.
And then I turned that into a product called Motor Connect because high doses of biotin help with connectivity in the cerebellum.
Got it.
So I did come kind of start with the compounding pharmacy,
Yeah.
try it, use it, and then turn it into products. And I have one for copper zinc imbalances called True Minerals.
Yeah. To fix the problems that were not commercially available. Can you talk a little bit for people who don't understand what a compounding pharmacy is?
So when you guys go to a pharmacy, you send a prescription and it's manufactured and you get it. Well, a compounding pharmacy actually makes that for you. So they get the raw ingredients and then they make that prescription. So it's still prescription based.
Hmm.
But for instance, say I want nystatin.
Hmm.
And I go to Walgreens or CVS, and the nystatin there is a liquid and it has yellow dyes and sugar.
Yep. Or it's a
And I don't,
tablet and it's red.
or it's red and a tablet. And I like, oh, I want to treat the yeast, but I don't want to use this. So I
Yeah,
sent my nystatin prescription to a compounding pharmacy and it's nystatin. That's what you
pure.
get.
Yep, just pure.
So
Ex
pure compounding pharmacy, it's pure
yeah.
stuff. Especially
Hmm.
for our mast cell people. They're so sensitive. And my kids are all mast cell. And
Hmm.
so I just find the excipients, some people will say, oh, well, this doesn't work. And I said, it's probably the excipient that's
Yeah.
stimulating your mast cell activation. So yeah. So compounding pharmacies, with all the big kind of conglomerates and big companies, they used to be like mom and pop kind of places.
Yeah.
And my pharmacy is like that. It's a few of us and we do it and it's nothing big or fancy, but we get
Yep.
the job done. So we compound things like methylcobalamin injections, hydroxycobalamin, low dose naltrexone, different
Mhm.
things for chelation. So it's nice. I love
Yeah.
having it.
Yeah. The compounding pharmacies really have made a huge difference for people who are sensitive. So many ingredients are contaminated with corn and gluten and soy and dairy and all the big things that we want to stay away from, especially if we're trying to treat the immune system. And even if the manufacturer says that's not in our product, it's contaminated usually because they're usually preparing it in a facility that has those things floating around. Uh,
Right.
and for people who are really sensitive, that's going to create some issues for them.
Yeah. People
Sure.
are sensitive to
Yeah.
parts per trillion.
Yeah.
I've learned
Yeah.
that with my daughter with chemical sensitivity. You don't have to see it or you don't have to smell it, but they could react to it.
Yeah.
And a lot of these different substances, for instance, like enzymes, even the natural enzymes, they're
Hmm.
cultured in aspergillus.
Hmm.
And so they're
Mold.
extracted from mold.
Yeah.
And so the really mold sensitive people will maybe
Mhm.
take a digestive enzyme and they'll have a reaction and they'll not understand why.
Yeah.
But it's not because of the enzyme, it's because of where it's coming from.
Yeah, where it's cultured from. And if
Mhm.
you have mold toxicity and mold sensitivity, and we're looking at your mold test, wondering why are you getting a hit while we're trying to clear it out, sometimes we forget that those products and a variety of products that we used are cultured from molds.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard for lay people to understand
Yeah.
all of these pieces, but I think that
Yeah, it's a
it
lot.
used to be like the insurance companies would cover prescriptions from compounding pharmacies, but over the years, the lobbying and all of that has gotten so intense where, a lot of it ends up out of pocket, but it
Mhm.
doesn't really get that much more expensive than a copay would be.
Right. Right. It can be
People just
really
don't
reasonable.
know about it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been doing this now for more than 17 years, and you've made some remarkable progress with your patients. Can you share some success stories that still inspire you to do what you do every day?
I don't know about you, but like when you first start, I think God puts all those really great cases in front of you because you're like, wow,
Yes, and multiples at one
this
time so you can
patient,
learn.
I gave this patient methylcobalamin and they started talking. And
Yeah.
so methyl B12 back in the day was huge.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Newbrander's protocol, and we would use that and we would get speech. And I mean, it's just, there's hundreds of cases. There's hundreds of cases. And same with leucovorin now.
Yeah.
Not for everybody, but when it really works, it's really, really decent.
Yeah, and
Um,
worth a try, if
mhm.
we suspect that's what's going on, these things are worth a try because sometimes you just never know what's going to be the key that unlocks the answer for them.
Yeah, but I think, like I can say chelation or, I can like throw out a bunch of stuff
Hmm.
in terms of like I I have those families and I have those kids who are they're just amazing and
Yeah.
they're in college and having jobs and having kids and
Yeah.
all of that. But I think, the ones that really strike me are the ones that have to work really hard to get them
Hmm.
where they go. It's not like, oh, I just did the diet, I'm cured, or I did
Yeah,
this and I'm better, or
right.
um, and I have those cases where the parents come to me and they say, I never thought my kid would be going to college.
Hmm.
And I never thought we would be here. So
That's
those are
amazing.
the ones that really like when I get the little notes or the college or the high school graduation pictures
Yeah.
and they and some of them, you lose touch with because they don't need me anymore.
Yeah.
And then you hear about it later. And
Hmm.
then I think the ones that don't get better are the ones that like sit with me the most.
Hmm.
They just sit with me. And we've had this population of children with severe apraxia. So apraxia is a motor planning issue. But if you saw these patients, you would think that they were mentally deficient
Hmm.
because they can't talk,
Yeah.
stimming. They're the classic person that you would see that looks autistic.
Hmm.
Running around, excited, verbal stimming, no speech. And that group of patients are incredibly brilliant.
Hmm.
And we are just finding out about how smart they are. There's a book called Underestimated by J.B. Hanley and his son Jamie. And
Hmm.
JB has all the resources in the world. He used to put those ads in the New York Times about autism and vaccine.
Yeah.
He could take his kid anywhere and do any treatment, and still we blocked, locked, couldn't get through. And they started spelling to communicate and the spellers method, and it just opened a door. And it
Wow.
opened a door for so many of my patients who are metabolically challenged. So we do help them metabolically,
Hmm.
but getting that ability to communicate. Some of them never got high school diplomas and they went back to get their high school diplomas so they could go to college.
Oh, wow. That's amazing stories.
Yeah, and Elizabeth Bonker is one of those spellers, and she was a valedictorian in her college, and she did a valedictorian speech that went viral,
Hmm.
and she's one of the people on that committee.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
she's non-speaking.
Hmm.
She can't not speak,
Wow.
but they asked her to be on this committee,
That's
which is
fantastic.
huge.
That's huge. Because
It's huge.
there's a way she can communicate. She just can't verbalize the way you and I verbalize.
And she's brilliant. I
Yeah.
mean, people on that committee, the individuals with autism on that committee, I know they're brilliant people.
Wow.
But if people saw them, they wouldn't see that.
Right.
So I guess for me, it's like seeing the brilliance, seeing the competence in
Mhm.
individuals, and as a practitioner, just trying to optimize it. But I know like the neurodiversity people say, okay,
Mhm.
we're fine. And it's like, yes, you are fine. You're fine. And it's
Right.
okay. Whatever it is, it's okay. But if you're struggling metabolically and we can help you feel better,
Yeah.
what's the harm in that?
Right. Let's do that. Yeah. So you're also part of something called MAPS, and you're educating doctors worldwide. Um, Tell us a little bit about MAPS and how do you see the integrative pediatrics evolving in the next decade as a result of what we're learning today?
I think we're at a crossroads, and MAPS is kind of in the middle of that crossroads.
Mhm.
It used to be called DAN, Different
Okay.
Autism Now,
Yeah.
and then they kind of dissolved DAN and turned it into MedMaps. And MedMaps is Medical Academy for Pediatrics and Special Needs. So it's not just special needs, it's
Okay.
pediatrics as well. So it's kind of like the functional medicine for peds.
Hmm.
And our goal is to train an army of clinicians to be the front line and how medicine should be and how people should be trained. We should train them to do these types of things from the beginning
Hmm.
because now it's backwards.
Right.
They come see us when nobody else can help them.
Yeah.
But so uh, we have some good leadership. And then we are just trying to get people trained so that they understand that this is the future.
Mhm. If there's a practitioner that's listening to this, how do they get involved in MAPS?
They could come to a conference,
Okay.
and the website is medmaps.org.
Okay.
And there's two conferences a year. And we have scholarships, and we want people to come. So contact, the executive director, and we just want people to come, share their experiences, learn about functional medicine. It's evidence-based. It's really scientific. We talk a
Yeah.
lot of science.
Oh, yeah. A lot of
We talk a
science.
lot of science.
Yeah.
And uh, at, and so hopefully we can move all of this forward
Mhm.
faster.
I think the greatest thing when you get into the functional medicine integrative space like this and MAPS and some of the other environmental academies and things like that, a lot of people might think it's not science-based. And I'm always amazed at how much science we have. And it's right, it's all the things that you and I learned in biochem class and chem class and organic chem. And we were like, oh, let's just learn this to be done with it. And then you get back and you start doing integrative medicine and you realize like all of that biochemistry stuff is what we needed to truly understand to fix people these days.
Yeah.
And you go back and you have to learn that in an intense version of it.
I felt like I finally understood the Krebs cycle when I learned how it made metabolic sense instead of just
Yes.
memorizing these cycles for
For
no
the
reason.
test, right?
They just make sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's so important to understand that all of this has science behind it.
Yeah.
And it's there and the research is there. It's just us having to learn how to utilize it and recognize that not every person is going to be straightforward and what we do for one might not work for another.
Yeah.
It's not as easy as prescribing a prescription and letting the person walk out the door in 10 minutes. That's not what this is about at all.
No.
Yeah.
And at MedMaps as well, they have a call for abstracts. And so we're always looking for research, experience. So if any of the clinicians out there have, uh, things they want to share, then send an abstract to MAPS
Oh,
because
that's
we
great.
want, I think one of my doctor friends is doing an abstract on research that was done on sensory qigong massage, and it
Oh,
helped with speech. And
mm,
the theory was that we're always thinking of the sensory system in the brain,
mm,
but the sensory system in the periphery being affected neurologically and how to turn that back on.
mhm.
So it's,
That's neat.
again, with the research and with the science behind it and with like clinical trials and all of that.
That's awesome. I love that. For parents that are just starting in this journey, what would you recommend be their first one or two steps?
Educate, educate, educate. How do you get educated? I do think that talkanow.org is a good place for like a biomedical approach or this functional approach for autism. It's the
Mhm.
autism community in action. MedMaps is doing a parent conference in March.
Oh, awesome. They usually do that around Memorial Day, right?
Um, they'll do it around Labor Day in September.
Labor Day in September. Okay.
Yeah, and then mid-March.
Okay.
Yeah. And they hadn't done a parent conference before,
Okay.
but we've
Is
been
it,
having parents that wanted to come to the conferences, and it was just for clinicians before.
got it. Is it Autism One that does theirs around Memorial Day?
Oh yeah, they don't exist anymore.
I don't really.
Mm-mm. So they
Wow.
don't do conferences. There was NAA, the National Autism Association.
Mhm.
They don't do a lot of parent conferences in functional medicine either. So
Yeah.
there's a few left. Documenting Hope,
Ooh,
that's another really nice one.
well, that's great.
Hmm.
So, what last words do you want to leave with our listeners?
That's people always ask that at the end of these. I do feel that listen to your heart, follow your intuition. Let
Mhm.
that guide you. There's a lot of information. Sometimes it gets to be too much
Yeah,
information. It's
it
hard to
does.
process everything.
Mhm.
Uh, Try not to make impulsive decisions about things. And if you have a child with special needs or if you have a grandchild with issues, presume competence.
Mhm.
There's a lot there,
Yeah.
especially some of these kids with behavior issues. I don't know how many patients of mine are put on psychotropic meds when they
Hmm.
have these metabolic issues. And, it's like a lot of them have pain, like headache,
Yeah.
abdominal pain, and
Hmm.
inflammation, and they're treating them with psych meds.
Yeah. It's sad,
So
isn't it?
I think, try to look for the underlying cause and
Mm.
not just band-aid things.
Where can listeners learn more about your work and what you do?
Oh, that's tough. Because I don't have a book. One of these days.
Yes.
Yes, one of these days. I think, med maps, if they're clinicians,
Mhm.
and I have lectured a lot for uh, communities like Taka. So there's just a lot of lectures that I've given
Mhm.
online.
Awesome. Well,
Mhm.
thank you for taking your time with us today. It's been a great conversation with you.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Deborah. I'm honored to be here, and thank you for doing the work that you do to put this out there for people because it's really important information.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me today on Let's Talk Wellness Now. Today's discussion with Dr. Usman reminds us that there's always more we can do. We can look deeper into biology, environment, and lifestyle to heal the next generation. If this episode inspired you, please share it with a parent or a practitioner who believes every child deserves a chance to thrive. And to learn more about Dr. Usman, you can visit truehealthmedical.com or truehealingnaturals.com. And if you're ready to explore your own root cause healing, visit us at serenityhealthcarecenter.com. You can also follow me on Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode of Let's Talk Wellness Now. Until next time, I'm Dr. Deb, reminding you to nurture your body, mind, and spirit. Be well, and I'll see you soon. Welcome to Let's Talk Wellness Now, where we bring expert insights to you. Please note that the views and information shared by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Let's Talk Wellness Now, its management, or our partners. Each affiliate, sponsor, and partner is an independent entity with its own perspectives. Today's content is provided for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered specific advice, whether financial, medical, or legal. While we strive to present accurate and useful information, we cannot guarantee its completeness or relevance to your unique circumstances. We encourage you to consult a qualified professional to address your individual needs. Your use of information from this broadcast is entirely at your own risk. By continuing to listen, you agree to indemnify and hold Let's Talk Wellness Now and its associates harmless from any claims or damages arising from the use of this content. We may update this disclaimer at any time, and changes will take effect immediately upon posting or broadcast. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you find this episode both insightful and thought provoking. Listener discretion is advised.